Hello, everyone. Really lovely to be here. And I mean, what an amazing venue, right? So, for a stupid, thick northerner who never went to college or university, it's quite freaking intimidating, I have to say. So, all this like history and science and thing powering down on me. So, I'm going to try and hopefully my timer's not started, so we're in for a long haul, people. I will try and keep it interesting, hopefully, maybe have a laugh. What do I do for a living, in case you're thinking, who the hell is this guy? You know, he's nothing to do with web design. What the hell? Can I have my money back? You know, so I'll show you the diagram I drew for my mum. So enjoy. It obviously makes it all very clear. So I tend to think in shapes and forms, I think, in all the work that I do. And my mum was like, probably like all your mums and dads, they have no idea what you do for a living, right? So they say, I think he or she is good with computers. That's pretty much it, right? So, or you get a call when they can't turn the channel on the Sky or something. So I said, Mum, look, this is what I do. Drew this diagram. It's kind of like, the intersection of art, design, and technology, and then that shape that it makes in the middle. That's what I do for people. And she looked at me and said, oh, I told my hairdresser you invented Google Maps. I was like, no. If I did, I wouldn't be here. So yeah, I like to do these kind of weird drawings to try and explain. I mean, I have no idea what I do, really, to be honest. And that's but I think that's also the more interesting things about, maybe being a generalist. It's an amazing time to be a designer doing this kind of stuff. But it's also incredibly overwhelming. It's like, I kind of wish that technology would stop advancing for a couple of years and we'd just concentrate on like craft and just use the things we've got in the constraints of the things we've got and just really learn how to use that and make beautiful things with it. But there's so much stuff every day is a new thing and a new trend. So I don't worry about trends. I'm more interested in beauty. I guess I do quite a lot of data visualization, though. I mean, Nadia's stuff was like, I don't do data visualization. I don't know what the shit I do, but Nadia does data visualization, right? Amazing. So I say, I'm kind of the Kim Kardashian of data viz. It's like I just like pretty shit, and that's what I do. And fortunately, luckily, clients actually pay me to do pretty things as well. So that's all right with me. I'm basically vacuous. So you're thinking, well, Bren, surely, and we're going to talk, I guess, about process. Now, I'm going to show you, and apologies, this is a very complicated slide, this next one. You might need a few minutes to just take it in, maybe write an essay or two on it, because this is probably the most complicated process slide you'll ever see. That's it, right? So, and it's kind of like, and I think probably everyone I don't care if you do Agile, Scrum, don't know what that is, I've just made it up. I don't know. Don't know what Agile is. And then I showed this to someone and said, well, that's kind of Agile as well. Is it? Great, I'm a genius. So, it's kind of, you get the brief, you have no idea what's, you don't know what you're going to make. And then it's chaotic. And then you're trying to get to this thing at the end, which is like, you're also, this side is noise. And there's signal, and you're trying to get from noise to signal. There's also complexity on that side. And there is simplicity. So, there's the old adage, when a design is finished, not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. And that's kind of that as well. I'm trying to take things away to get to a more beautiful thing, a more simple thing. And so I guess that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to do that by showing you some of my work. Part of that process is this idea of collect, curate, combine, and the idea that I think was also mentioned earlier on about lots of small things coming together to make one bigger thing. And often the small things are very mundane, but they make, hopefully, something much better and more beautiful and more complex by combining them. I used to make breakbeat LPs there was a time, I think it was a Wednesday on a tea time, I was cool for about 5 minutes. When I was a lot younger, and before I got into design, I would make help. This was a record company in London, and I would help them source obscure vinyl break beats in. Do you remember vinyl? It's back now, isn't it? It's cool. So I would find vinyl records and find obscure little beats, and then literally splice them together with a razor blade and tape. I didn't even own a sampler. I couldn't afford one. So I would splice these things together on tape and make these breakbeat LPs. So I'm splicing together ready-made things, found things, and I think that's all I do now, but I do it digitally and with different technologies, and thankfully someone pays me to do this stuff. So it's the same methodology, and I've always been inspired by people like Cold Cut and Steinsky, who are pioneers in this kind of area of making records from found things. And I still, that's a sort of an idea that's still true to my heart, really, of doing that kind of process. So how do I do that? Well, I make, we've got some sound on here somewhere, or not. Oh, there we go. So I do lots of these little experiments. I might do like one a day. And I'm using processing or open frameworks or something like that. So it's about taking these little experiments and combining them in different ways. So my design company, and I say company, it's just me, is called It's Just Me in my back room. I was out for dinner with friends last night, and this guy was like, "So how many is there of you?" You know, he'd seen the work I'd made, and I said, "No, it's just me. I don't even own a fucking dog." So, you know, no pets, no one to talk to, you know. So anyway, I did this kind of treatment of, you know, how to illustrate my thought process. It's about trying these different combinations to see what fits together, to see what's interesting, to see what is an interesting composition. And that's kind of the basis of how I work. That timer still isn't running, so someone just shout when to shut up. So here's an example of that. Now, I did a workshop yesterday, and it was kind of about data and working with data, and generative art stuff was in there. But before we did that, I gave him this thing. And it really is a demonstration of how you can take incredibly mundane, and in this instance cheap, things and combine them to create something more interesting. So you can do this. You can buy these things off this. So this is as you can imagine, it's a coin cell battery. So that's about £2 off eBay. And you can buy, this is a little vibration motor that everyone's got one here now in your phone. And you can buy those off eBay or wherever, £2. And by themselves, you know, even though I guess, you know, one time the technology was pretty amazing, but, you know, now it's kind of mundane to us. So you put that with that, and you get this. I like that. This one is like a gondola. I mean, it's so beautiful. So the conclusion from that is, I don't need friends. I make my own friends. But this video is actually captured from as kind of a workshop I did with Arup. Now, Arup, I'm sure some of you know, is a huge engineering company. They built the Bird's Nest Stadium, Sydney Harbour Bridge. They're involved with a garden bridge that may or may not be built. And yet here I am with some coin cell battery and a vibration motor going, let's be creative, you know. So, but the point is that they loved it because even though they're working in that kind of environment, they still need time out to just explore and play. And it was an important, they really loved it, even though there was people sat there who were like full-on engineers working with concrete. And, no one ever dies when I'm making my stuff. Play around with concrete, people might die. So I would encourage you to do this. Now, I've got 3 to give away. And look, there's 1, 2, 3. Now, my question is, should I throw these into the audience and possibly be sued, right? But we're not in America, so the likelihood of that is probably, it's not going to happen. So should I throw 1 or 2, maybe? Yeah, okay. Right, I'm really shit at throwing. I was always last to be picked at sports. So I'm going to throw. Oh, I see. Right. Hey! Right, okay, right. Let me try another technique. Oh! No, it's not. They're not heavy enough, are they? So, there we go. Right. So, but honestly, and also, there's a rule though. If you get one of these things, you have to make it and you have to upload it to this thing called the internet so I can see it. Not so I can judge it, but don't just put it in a drawer, and then check your Facebook status. No one cares. So, go and make something with it, or give it your kids or whatever. And go and buy this stuff and just play. So, I've got this idea that, you get the work that you put out there. God, you know what? I'm knackered now. Everything comes back to you. You put the work out there, and that's the kind of work that you get. And when I say work, I mean it can be work that you make for yourself. And you can use that. It's kind of like a honey trap for clients. If you create something that gets a bit of a debate going, or people see, or people write about, it acts like this beautiful flower waiting for the bee, like the client, come along and go, oh, we'll have a bit of that. Thank you very much. So, if you've seen a couple of my talks before, you would have seen this next thing, but I need to show it because it gives it context. So I think you should put work out there that you think deserves to be out there. And so I did this thing where I was reading Ray Bradbury's Dandelion Wine, which is one of his non-science fiction books. And there was this passage in it about there was a neighbor who was going away to try and make a happiness machine. And I thought, happiness machine, that sounds like a nice goal, right? And the internet is amazing and the web is beautiful and amazing, but it also can be a horrible place, particularly on Twitter, and you knee-jerk reactions, and you kind of forget that behind that handle, that Twitter name, is a human being. So I wanted to make something that sort of said, that's a person, not just behind Twitter, but these are actually people, in my own kind of way, weird way. So I made this machine that connects to the internet, and when you press it, you get like a receipt of happiness. And is this video going to play? I have no idea. Oh. The music's terrible, by the way, I apologize. So you do this thing, and I made this for myself, and it's not anything complex, right? So what I find fascinating, I would say I'm a geek, but you meet other geeks who don't get what people buy or why people love things, right? They don't love things because you've connected a printer to the internet. No one gives a shit, right? What they buy into is the concept of it and the story and everything that's wrapped around that. So I showed this was at the London Design Festival a few years ago, and this guy came up to me and says, yeah, but what you've done, it's really easy. I was like, and? Right? It was like he was trying to stab me. It was like, yeah, I know, it's kind of stupid, right? But look, there's a cue to use it. Don't you get that, right? So, and that's the thing. So the other thing that I love about it is that it's all about the form factor. if this was an A4 printer, I've made a fax machine, right? No one gets excited about a fax machine, ever, right? Unless, I don't know. But, so the fact you can tear this off and it fits in your hand, it's the size of your hand, and it feels more intimate, feels almost cute, it feels a bit more special, and you can tear it off, put it in your pocket, give it to someone, or pin them up, as you'll see. So, the other point I want to make, right, is never prejudge your audience, and I've learned this over the years. So I did a little exhibition in Munich, and while it was setting up, these three lovely old ladies were out there for 10 minutes reading this stuff in English, and they were German, and of course they can read English because they're clever, unlike us, right? So they were reading this stuff. And I thought, God, that was never my audience. In my head, I was not thinking of these three old ladies, lovely ladies, reading, interacting with it, or partaking in it, or enjoying it. And of course, there they were. And so I think it's because there are certain things that are universal. People love stories, right? People love, they're intrigued. They don't care that it connects to the internet, uses electric imps to connect to the Wi-Fi, They don't care about that stuff. They care about the content, and it's a universal thing. And they're German, I'm English. It was written in English, but they still love it, right? So this went out on the internet a few years ago, and it was on certain blogs, and people wrote about it. It was weirdly in the Wired store in New York. You couldn't buy it. They emailed me and said, well, we've got this store, and it's like a concept store that we do at Christmas time. Could we put the happiness machine? I was like, well, yeah, but you can't buy it. So we don't care, we're just like, okay. If we don't even want it to work, I was like, okay, so fine. So it was a strange one, that. So anyway, people were engaging with it. And again, I made this for myself. It was, you just put it out there and see what comes back, right? So then this happens. So this is like a few years later. It's not like the week after. So this was at the end of last year. That project is a few years old. So Airbnb, or an agency that works with Airbnb called Civic, they got in touch and said, we love the happiness machine, and we've got this thing at the Sundance Film Festival where we take over this house. We call it the Airbnb house. It's really cool, and there's like a barista, and there's couches, beautiful furniture, and there's going to be an installation. And we thought, as part of this installation, it was all about local neighborhoods and the people in your neighborhood and stuff like that. And could we have your happiness machine kind of sat there? So you get these emails, and rather than just saying, yeah, I think you have to kind of go back and negotiate. So I said, I could do that. And, because they basically wanted it for free, and that's makes me feel ill. So, I've got stuff to buy, man. So anyway, I said, no, yeah, I could do that. But why don't you commission me to do something like that, but on a bigger scale? So I did another concept, and they said, no, we really like that, but we really like the printers. So I said, right, let's do something else with the printers. And they wanted an interactive element. So we did this thing where people could SMS using Twilio. People could SMS in their stories. There was a phone number in the house. And they would share their stories about people from the local neighborhood, people they've met on travels, from things like the best coffee place to really quite in-depth stories, as it turns out. I wanted to use SMS. I'd not used SMS before. I think it's kind of a universal thing. You don't have to go to a website or anything like that. SMS, easy, right? So they were very excited about that. They wanted 12 of them. And I didn't realize at the time the work involved to make 12 3D printed, as you'll see. And then I said, we're going to need an admin system. And they said, well, why? And I said, well, you're asking people to SMS in and then they're going to print out. So people go to the house and print them these random things out. I said, I live near Manchester. If this was in England, it'd just be full of swearing, like all the time. And they said, no, you know what? So I built in an admin system, and just before we launched it, they said, oh, just put it all live straight away. I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, it'd be cool. We got one with swearing, and I don't know if Americans are really happy or something, but there was none. There was practically, I think there was one that had a bit of swearing in it that we had to delete, and the stories were pretty amazing as well. So then it's like, you realize you've got 4 weeks, and you've got these printers to make, and while it was fun doing one, making 12 was, a total ball ache, to be honest. But it's not like I'm working down a mine. I'm doing the stuff I want to do. So, and also, I'm a great believer in the power of naivety. I used to have no idea how you actually design in 3D and make industrial design in 3D. I am not an industrial designer. It's an incredibly complex skill. I have friends who are industrial designers. There's so much involved with it. But you can download, there's a piece of software called Fusion 360, which is used by professionals. It's completely amazing. And your biggest friend is YouTube. So I just watched a load of YouTube videos, right? How to do this, how to make a box, how to, So design these things. How do I cut a logo out of it? Didn't know how to do that. I'd never done that before. And, once you know, it's easy, right? So, the client doesn't know this, by the way. Yeah, they think you are the nuts, right? You can do anything. So I'm like, yeah, cut logo out, no problem. How do cut logo out on Fusion 360? Yeah. What? No, I'm busy. Yeah. So you just learn it, and then it becomes part of your DNA. That's what naivety does. It makes you curious. You go and learn this stuff, right? And you can go, right, I can now do this. Because without that, you don't really learn stuff. But, it's always like, I think I have the thing in my head, and then the thing I make is like, it's not quite what I imagined. So that's why I'm watching these YouTube videos. You in the middle is this gap, and I think we all have this. Here's the thing. It's beautiful in your head. The thing you make is like, it's kind of all right, but what the hell is that? So you're trying to reduce this gap by learning lots and lots of stuff, but you never reduce that gap. Right? It's impossible, because that thing over here, what you're trying for is perfection, and it's kind of an illusion. It's like a carrot on a stick that you never reach, because all you ever see is flaws. I'm sure Stanley Kubrick looked at all his work and he just thought, I can just see flaws here, and everyone else going, genius. So, lots of 3D printing involved. I realized that there was like 3 components to each case, and it took 8 hours to do one case. And I had 4 weeks, and we started printing 2 weeks into it. So you have to, with a client, managing expectations, you have to say, right, once this design is done and I start printing, we cannot alter it, because there is no time. Did the electronics, and the reason I'm showing you this, I guess, is I want to make the point of, document your work. Take photographs and write down, keep your sketchbooks. They're all really, really important for those lonely winter nights. And then, you're testing them. The other thing I was quite proud of on this, right? I find with a lot of electronic projects, they do something, and then you look at the cable connecting it, and it's like just horribleness. It's like a plastic, it's just horrible. It's like the default power adapter. I was like, I cannot do that. It's going to ruin it. So I sourced this fabric cable. You can get fabric cable that's used in lots of lighting and stuff like that. It's readily available from places like Urban Cottage. But I had to make the power leads up. And so I ended up with this fabric cable that is like, this stuff is made on looms in Milan, apparently. And it was like the finishing touch to it. And did the SMS stuff. I made sure there was a message that went back to you after you submitted your story. That's that took me a long time to paint. So, yeah. And now, right, so you go to I'm going to Sundance Film Festival. How amazing, right? I love films. And you get, right, I love films. I hate the snow. I mean, I hate it. It's a hateful thing. If it was brown, people would hate it. They would, right? So, and I get there and realize we're not in Hollywood. I'm in Salt Lake bloody City or Park City, because that's where the Sundance Film Festival. And it's snowing and it's cold. And I'm there in I don't have outdoor clothes, right? I don't have a puffer jacket or big shoes or I don't know. So I'm like, hello, I'm from England. It's like, it's shit here, isn't it? So no, I wasn't. I think they did say, hey, how's it going? I says, God, I hate the snow. It just came over as like a moaning bastard. He's like, I'm at the Sundance Film Festival. It's snowing. Yeah, but we did this thing. This is Christian from Airbnb. There was about 5,000 stories printed in a week, and amazing stories. I'm not talking like this is the best coffee. I mean, things with narrative, and it all works like faultlessly, which was good. It's always a problem, when you're on your own. There ain't no tech support, or you're going to be asleep, and they're in America and it's not working. So, thankfully, it did all work. So I wanted to show you that because it came from a thing that I made for myself, and then it took me to Sundance and did this work for Airbnb. So put your work out there. You do not know who's going to see this stuff. Love this guy. He took loads of amazing photos, and I mean, look at it's called the happiness machine. Hello, how happy does he look? So job done. I like this idea of the emotional compass, and you'll see that it's a phrase from an interview with Jonathan Glazer, who directed, I think, is a masterpiece, Under the Skin. And, we talk a lot about, getting to the design solution and stuff. And I guess this is more to do with art than design, but I like the idea of a feeling, using feelings. So there's this amazing film called Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson, not looking like Scarlett Johansson. And I watched it and I was like, I thought it was like art. I mean, it was art. And then I saw this video with Jonathan Glazer, and it's a really fantastic interview that Channel 4 did. You should hunt it out. It's on YouTube. But there's a particular thing that I really, really like.
I had a feeling for it, and you start with a feeling for something. It's like the feeling is a very strong, sort of palpable one, and you can't necessarily articulate it, and you don't necessarily have an image for it, but you know that there's a feeling, and and then you're trying to get to that, but you really are in it's not an obvious journey. So you have an emotional compass. That's the thing that that's your true north sort of thing all the way. But the story changes in the way you tell it countless times.
So what I love about that is, I get briefs, or I get commissions from clients, and they kind of want to know what I'm going to make, and I have no idea. It's like I just got an email earlier today, and it's from the legal department of the client I'm going to be working with, and it's like they want it like dates of what stage will the thing be. I'm like, I don't bloody know. Yeah, I haven't replied, by the way. But I don't know. I might do, it might be amazing one day, and then, I might hate it the next. I it's art, right? It's, you can't really, well, I didn't say that. But, but I love this idea of having, you kind of know where you want to go, but you can't describe it. And it's a very difficult thing when you're trying to have this conversation with a client, and the client needs to be as creative as you. I think they have to have the same kind of vision as you, and they also have to have a hell of a lot of trust. I did a piece of work that I'm not going to show for EE, and the client was like, "Oh, we just want you to do what you do, and we want it to be unique and different." can you show us an example of what it would be like from your other work? No, because it wouldn't be unique and different, you see. That's a contradiction. So you've got to try, you're kind of coaxing them, and there's got to be a lot of trust. And I thought, I'm speaking at a web conference, right? And I don't really make web stuff, but I have done a couple of web things recently. And I thought, you know what, I better dig those out and show you. Because it sort of fits into that idea of, I was trying to create a feeling, I guess, originally, and then I don't think I did do that. So it was for the Atlantic magazine, and they wanted me to do this like interactive data visualization, and they wanted to show the size of the US economy in gigabytes, and which they could just do a bar chart, but they wanted something. It was sponsored by Seagate, so they wanted it like all, bells and whistles and stuff. And I just started to sketch like this, like probably everyone else in this room, but I was kind of like, well, imagine, what if you could hear or see all these gigabytes? Imagine all those hard drives, like, the volume of the sound would be amazing, or maybe it's you imagine a room, and like, what does the internet look like? And I thought, I think I drew up there, like, imagine it was a black mass and it was floating above Manhattan, and, so I'm saying this on a phone call, and then you go, hello? All right. This is where it starts off. It's kind of I had a feeling, nothing more. It was like I didn't have a written down concept as such. I just knew it was kind of this kind of thing. So then, what helps is you do very quick sketches that move on from this. So, and I used to do stuff like this in Flash all the time, and it's, and now you can use, this is 3JS. So I'd never used, again, naivety thing, I'd never used 3JS before, so I was just learning as I went. And, what if there was cubes? And all I'm doing here is going, what is interesting compositionally? I flick these buttons. I'm not interested in, like, what works as navigation or anything like that. I'm pressing these things to go, what is interesting compositionally? What forms do these things take? Oh, that's interesting over there. Let's explore that. And I upload these things to like Basecamp, and if the client is good, and also you set expectations. You go, I'm just going to upload some weird sketches, so do not panic. It's not going to look like this, right? So you've got to manage their expectations, and then if they're a good client, they understand that. Where it gets messy is with this particular project. There was an agency involved. There was the client of the agency, there was the client, the Atlantic, and it was a lot of people who all had an opinion, which is lovely. And then, I was like, there was two projects. So there was that one, and then there was another one, and there wasn't really any content. It was like, we want you to visualize the internet. I was like, what? It's like, what's the internet like? And we're going to show how much data goes through the internet. We're going to hook you up with like a real-time feed. We're going to buy the license for that, and we will know how many pictures are coming through Instagram. And so I was like, imagine you see this black thing, and it goes off in the distance, and you're seeing all these things going through it. And they were like, yeah, whatever. So I did this as like another sketch. How could we use sound, maybe? And you would spin it round, and you're getting these. I was imagining data streams and stuff. So this is P5JS, this is 3JS, HTML. Yeah. I'd love to see Amazon like this. Wouldn't it be great? Just e-commerce like this. Yeah. Take a long time. Ignore that typography. It's embarrassing. It's not. What is that? It's awful. And then we were like, oh, maybe we're in a cube. Maybe the internet is a giant cube, and there's all these things connected. And you've got no content. Don't worry. It just looks nice. And they didn't really have any content. This is the thing. So again, it's all 3JS and stuff. So in the end, the invisible infrastructure looked like this. You can hear the rumble of the hard drives. I'm using sound on the internet. It's amazing, right? So, and possibly annoying. So, yeah, and effectively it is a bar chart, but it's kind of like a sexy 3D one or something. And it was kind of like, there was loads of things that the client made me cut out. So there's a bit where you go into the stream. I wanted it so when you clicked on a sector, you went into it. It felt emotional. It was cinematic, and it was in there right to the very end. I think I did 35 different versions of this thing before it went live, and then just before it went live, they said, "You know that bit where we dive into it? Can you take that out?" So this bit, where it wasn't a slider, you automatically went into it, and they said, "Could you remove that bit?" I was like, yeah, And by this point, I was so tired, I just went, I don't give a shit anymore. Just give me the money. But because they said to me at one point, "We've never worked with a designer who cares so much, who argues every point for a reason." I was like, well, of course I care. This is what I do. But I wanted this bit, and they took it out, so that's why the slider's there, because I just thought, right, I'm still going to have it for myself. I need to crash on. And then the other thing where it was like how much data is traveling through the internet, it was we just cut it down and made it simpler. And lots of people like this one, but it was just so simplified, and it was just a way to show how much data was going through, but in a more sort of experiential way or something. I don't know. So, yeah, put things into the world that you think deserve to exist. I'm going to just go through this one quite quickly. Now, I also know that chimps are not monkeys, so please don't tweet about that, okay? So, the point I want to make with this is that you can approach clients as well sometimes. You don't have to wait for them to come to you. So I went to MailChimp and said, "Look, you do UX things, and you write about UX, and I'm about experience, but a lot of my stuff is physical." And so I said, "Why don't we get together?" And so MailChimp, if you don't know, are a big email newsletter company in Atlanta. Why don't we get together and explore email in physical objects, what that could be? And they were like, "That sounds great." And I did a conceptual PDF. I called it something. I called it 6 Monkeys. And each monkey was named after a famous linguistic chimp. And I know that monkeys aren't chimps. It's fine. Just go with it. I played around with this stuff, and this project just was quite a long time, and they just let me play and play and play. Electric Imp, a way to connect the Wi-Fi and with electronics. Really, really nice. Velcro is amazing, as we all know. So I love this quote. "When designing a door handle, consider the door." This is from the book 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School. And it's a really lovely little tiny book, and it's just got lots of interesting quotes like that. So this is about, remember the context of what you're designing for. So for instance, something like this. So I made the 6 objects, which I'm not going to show you all of them, but you'll be pleased to know. So this is an object that you can email, and there is no interface other than email, because I think email gets a really bad rap. It's pretty amazing, right? My career has been built on email because I get offers, and I can't do my job without email, but all we hear is, "Oh, God, email, I hate it," which, I hate it as well, but it also is kind of beautiful. So I wanted people to fall back in love with email and look at it in a different way. And it's kind of like this ubiquitous interface, if you think about it. So what if we could email an object? That was its interface. It had an email address. So I gave this to my brother-in-law, who's not, he does stuff in IT, but he's not a programmer. And how many people here use IFTTT? Yeah? Few. So you can put the internet to work for you. You make these rules and it does things, right? So you can also get it to send an email. So if you get a favorited photo on Instagram, it could send an email. So he realized this, and he thought, well, hang on, I can make the colours change on this thing that Brenner's made and via email. So he does a lot of stand-up paddle boarding, so he wants to know the wind speed. So he has it sat underneath his TV, and if the wind speed is too high, then it flashes red. And he set up like 50 of these rules and he has to take pills at a certain time at night, and it flashes purple or it changes to purple. It's all in the background, all done through email. He didn't learn an interface. He learned the grammar of how it needs to speak, but that was about it. There was no app to download. There was no web page to go to. It was just email. So that was a demonstration, really, of how ubiquitous email is, and maybe we can use it a bit differently. This one, what if you could turn your email off like a light switch? This is the one that it went nuts on the internet. This was the one that Kickstarter emailed me to say, you need to do this on Kickstarter. I thought, yeah, I've been there before. I nearly died. Yeah, these are very simple ideas, right? But you put them into the world and people go, oh, yeah, why can't I turn my email off like a light switch? You might be done with it for the weekend. Put these ideas out there and see what happens. This is weird. It's notification, but notification that's a bit embarrassed. It's notifying you. So there's a technology called muscle wire, and you can make levers out of it. So it's kind of like, oh, you got an email from John. Oh, you're busy. You know what? I'll leave it. Right? So it's kind of like embarrassed. And so this is kind of a jokey thing, right? But it causes debate. It's about the interaction of machines in your busy day. How are they polite? Can we have polite objects? And it's connected to the internet. And I love paper clips, so any excuse to use a paper clip, then, I am there. Right, one more thing to show. Everything starts out ugly. So as you saw on one of my first slides, ugliness, trying to get to beauty. And that is the process that I always go through. And a client always has to understand that as well. So this was a project I did for Twitter. And they came to me and said, oh, we've got this event in Paris. It's one night. We want you to create something where people can tweet into something and something happens with their tweet. So they showed me the venue. And they showed me the venue, and there was lots of screens embedded in the walls, and it looked like windows. And I said, well, maybe we can imagine if we're looking through the window and looking through, maybe it's like an aquarium, but not like literally fish, because that would be rubbish. So I quickly did, you start to create these sketches, because otherwise you're talking in the abstract. So I did these kind of things where flocking motion, and just coloured bars, just to create something to criticize. That's all we're doing at the moment. And these things would, it would go round in the space in a sort of very linear motion. They thought, oh yeah, there's something maybe, and I could, each one would be a tweet or something. So then you start to iterate on that, bring some art directional and compositional things. I originally used a sine wave. So I'd imagine the Twitter ID might influence this sine wave, and you wrap it around in 3D, and you basically get colanders. I don't know why. So you get these machines. I wasn't really after machines. So you get things like this and this. And I thought, yeah, it's all right, but it's not really making my heart leap. There's no poetry involved. So remember at the beginning I talked about the little experiments that you saw for a second? So I do all those so I can then use them in other projects maybe. And I thought, well, they're swimming like this and it's really boring. They're like in a box. Well, what if they were swimming around a sphere? Would it be more poetic and more beautiful? And I'd already worked out how to draw lines around a sphere. So I took that maths and applied it to this thing. And so now, even though I didn't like the shapes still, they were now swimming around an invisible sphere. And it seemed more, it just was more joyful to me rather than them going like that. And it was quite dull. So you then take that, you make lots of art directional changes, and this is what I ended up making. what would happen is people would tweet, and it would take their ID, their user ID. It would then take other metrics. So it would take how many followers do they have? Are they following more people than are following them? If they are following more people than is following them, then you get big eyes because you're like a voyeur almost, you know. And we did lots of, if you've been on Twitter for ages and quite prolific on Twitter, you were like really like beautiful, and you know, you were like, wow, you know. So you got all these, so everything was unique, and you got a selfie back of the creature that was made when you tweeted it as well. And these are all 3D meshes that are created in real time, right? So 3D meshes, hang on a minute. So I had a MakerBot, you know, this was my original one. This is a year of MakerBot. You know, everything starts out ugly, that's that, you know. I don't need a bloody pliers that don't work. I don't need a mini Manhattan, you know, Empire State Building. Who needs this shit, right? So, but it's all right, because when new technology comes along, and I know this 3D printing has been around since the 80s, but when it comes around in a new context, you push buttons to see what works and what doesn't work, and that is part of the process. So at this point, I was pushing buttons and downloading things to print, but then I wanted to do stuff that was programmed. So you can take those 3D meshes, you can go to your friend at Manchester Metropolitan Uni who has a high-end colour 3D printer and get them 3D printed. So these were now things that were digital that you couldn't hold in your hands, you could now hold in your hands, right? So look, this is someone who, you know, is quite prolific on Twitter. They've got a lot of tweets, and they're probably quite interesting. And I don't know if it's a male or female, I don't really know. And I thought, well, I've been on Twitter since 2007. Well, I'll put me in, because, you know, I'm maybe interesting a little bit. Thought, you know, this person looks amazing, so I'll put me in. Oh. Right. There's obviously something wrong with the algorithm. It's, you know, it's maybe it's in reverse. Yeah, that was genuinely me, right? Which is quite upsetting. So, and then the voyeuristic one. So they're following more people than is following them, and they got massive eyes, and this body shape was formed by the number of their ID, their Twitter ID. I used it as a kind of DNA to make the shape. Again, put this stuff out there. This was a side effect. This wasn't part of the original job to 3D print them, but I 3D printed them, and then there was an exhibition in Paris this year, and they got in touch with me and said, could we display your stuff? We've seen it online. We're having a 3D printing exhibition in Paris. So me and my wife went over there and, you know, had a lovely time. We spent about 10 minutes in the exhibition then, you know, so, but, you know, so all these things peel off the things that you originally made. And time's up. So I think I like this phrase, and so I'm going to leave you with it. Remind people of something they have never seen before. Thank you very much.